Good evening, friends. Welcome to this Thursday edition, the June Thursday edition of Mystery Wine Blind Tasting here at Field & Main Restaurant. I am your host, Neal Wavra, and I'm delighted to be with you. We have this nice little red number to start us off this evening. It's got a little bit of darker color. That's telling me something already, but let's work this together. Who's joining? If you're in on this, watching along this evening, ready to play, let us know. If you don't have the wine, no big deal. Join us anyway. We'll give you some feedback with respect to the appearance, what the wine smells like, and then what it tastes like, and perhaps you can use this to your own benefit. Hey, Kathy, how are you? Good evening to you. Happy Thursday indeed. Wonderful to have you here. It's been a little while, but glad to have you back. Dean and Bobbin are with us. Hi, guys. Welcome. And yes, the Prodigal Wine Taster returns. Hey, Todd. How are you, sir? Great to have you with us this evening. And Greg, hey, I got a chance to spend some time with Greg this week as you're on the eve of your retirement, correct, Greg? Tomorrow's your last day and off into new adventures as you're exploring what those might be, but wine will be part of it. And this tasting will be part of that. And so we're excited to have you with us this evening. Rob and Kathy, hello, hello. And the Kestenbaums, good evening. Trish, Andy, and Kathy, man, if they weren't here, it wouldn't be a tasting. So we've got the gang together. It's awesome. Pretty expressive. All right. Well, with everybody here and more probably joining, including Kristen. Hi, Kristen. How are you? Welcome. Let's get started. What do you see when you look at this wine? As you recall, for those of you that are relatively new to this or new to this altogether, or maybe some of you who might just be watching and don't know what we're doing, each month on the third Thursday of each month, we taste a wine that's blind. It's presented in this kind of brown paper bag. You can get a bottle here at the restaurant, and you and I won't know what's in the contents of the bottle as long as you don't open the brown paper bag, and we work our way through it. First and foremost, going to look at appearance, and you learn a lot about a wine in appearance. And Sharon, hello, welcome. From the appearance, you can pick up, and really what we're doing is a deductive process, so you can put away a lot of things in the wine world and not have to deal with them. So just by appearance alone, we know this is a red wine, which is a bit rudimentary, right? We're getting notes thanks to Dean and from Kathy. It's deep purple and the color goes all the way to the rim. And what they're denoting there, of course, is that the color has an indication of what the grape might be in the place, and that the color goes all the way to the rim would indicate that the wine's relatively youthful. If there was a watery rim, you might have a higher alcohol quality, but if there's a sort of a dustiness to the rim, a light fading in color as it goes from the center to the rim, and by that I mean from the center of the glass all the way to the edge outside, you might have a more aged wine. And so dark with good legs, wine looks chewy, according to Robert, yes. And hi, Erica and Sheila, or excuse me, Eric and Sheila. Great to have you guys with us. This, yeah, it does look chewy. It has kind of a darker purplish kind of hue, and chewy, we're thinking about like rich wine with perhaps higher alcohol, more fruit expression, and it's definitely presenting that way. As Greg noted, the legs, so as you swirl the wine, we definitely are talking about the wine legs. Thank you, Kathy. You swirl the wine, you get tears that drip and form, and they form legs. And the tears, do they shoot fast? Do they take a little while to get down? And the legs, do they stay relatively independent from one another and last for a while, or are they sort of sheeting and they just sort of disappear? If they're fast tears and they sheet, you're probably looking at something that's more moderate to lower alcohol. If they are very substantial, slow moving, and they stay for a period of time, it's an indication of higher alcohol or maybe some residual sugar, something that's got a little sweetness to it. So this wine seems to present, with respect to the color and the appearance, a deep, dark, youthful wine that has purplish hues, maybe a tiny bit of a reddish hue, but more purplish, and some concentration to it, which might indicate maybe a warmer climate with higher alcohol, maybe some residual sugar. probably not super residual sugar, but I mean, if she threw a port in here, then we could be talking about higher alcohol and residual sugar. But the legs have some pigments. They've got some nice color extraction from the skins. Yes, and so you have a deeper, richer, kind of more advanced and developed skin, and then you can extract more. You can soak the actual juices pressed from them on the skins, and that's where the color extraction comes from. And as Kathy's noting, there's color in the actual tear and leg that's there, and so this wine presents not only just in the actual wine itself, but in its tears and its legs, some of that color element. So we're talking about, in this case, if we're looking at a spectrum of wine that has, say, Gamay and Pinot Noir on one side and has sort of Cabernet, Tannat, Petit Verdot, something richer and darker and more robust on the other side of the spectrum, this is more toward that side of the spectrum than the Pinot and the Gamay side of the spectrum, just by color and just by the appearance. And so we haven't smelled the wine or tasted it yet, for those of you that are just joining us, right? And this is what you already know about this wine, or you think you know. You start to build a profile. So dark and nearly opaque, as Dean notes too. Greg's saying that Petit Verdot or Syrah, excuse me. Kristen, that is correct. So when you turn the wine more like this, and if you have a white surface underneath it, you can get a really much more true sense of the wine. And if you have light all around, if you've got good light, you can see the color, and you can see where that variation exists. So we're talking about the center of the wine to the core of the wine rather to the rim, and the rim then would be something that exists just on the outside of the wine, especially as you tilt it. It's not so much the case, although you see some of it when you have it upright, but tilted you get a lot more surface area and you really can see quite a bit more. Petit Syrah, Petit Verdot, Tannat, Syrah, Malbec. So this is what Kathy and Greg have already helped us with, is devising then a series of grapes that we might consider based on what we've seen. So let's take it now to smell and see what we can find. We're looking for a few things: fruit, earth, and wood. F-E-W, fruit, earth, wood. And fruit presents as all kinds of different fruit. Is it fresh? Is it dried? Is it cooked? Is it medicinal? Is it underripe? What kind of fruit character exists? Is it tropical fruit? Is it tree fruit, stone fruit, berries, so on and so forth? Earth can present itself in the way of sort of horse manure, cow pasture, barnyard. It can be leathery elements, can be cigar kind of qualities. And then you have wood, and wood can present itself much more, less in the way of actually smelling wood, although sometimes cedar kind of presents itself, more in the world of spice. Do you smell spices? Because of the wine's aging or processing in oak in particular, that would give you a signature of some spice thanks to the oak being toasted. Robert's noting that Kathy with him is seeing some orange tawny color on the rim. There is a little bit, right? I got a tiny bit. Mine's less orange, but more like ruby element. So what do you smell? Dean's out of the gate again with dark fruit, cherry, blackberry, hint of wood smoke, maybe? I like that, yes. Lots of spice. Todd, yes. There is a lot of spice. So this is a wine that has likely seen a warmer climate giving us a riper grape expression and seen some wood. And by wood, maybe with that kind of overt spice profile, a touch of new oak, maybe not 100% perhaps, but there's some there. Kristen, nice. Little forest floor mustiness. Fleshy and meaty. So good descriptors from Greg, thank you. Plum, blueberries, smoke, cardamom, cacao. Oh, great descriptors. So in this way, right, just because each of you has a list, it's not like I smell one thing, each of you has a bunch of things that you're picking up. This is an expressive wine. This is a wine that is showcasing quite a bit right now, right off the bat. Didn't need a minute, didn't need 20 minutes, didn't need 5 years for it to come into itself. It is showcasing pretty prominently and in a pronounced way right now. Some leather, some smoke, a hint of turpentine. Nice. Peat. So there's that kind of mossy smokiness, very smokiness. Scotch, which would be that element I think, Robert, your son is onto something there. For me in particular, there's a little bit of that smokiness that's coming through, which plays off sort of that meatiness that people have picked up on. But that Scotch element, while it might reflect also that smoky peat quality, I think it also reflects the fact that there's a little bit of an alcoholic smell to this. There's a tiny bit of a retronasal burn from the alcohol. So, Dean says it reminds me of the 1980s California cowboy zins, but I don't think it's a zin. I mean, we should consider zin, right? A little darker perhaps than most zin would present, but it is in your face. And that kind of, I like some people have noted Petit Syrah, for example. Petit Syrah has that sort of punchy power, that kind of robust flavor. But I think Syrah is something that we could be talking about here, right? Kathy's picking up a little bit of licorice too. So Greg, you're noting a little volatile alcohol. There's two different things here we want to parse out: volatile acidity and volatile alcohol. So volatile alcohol is not really a compound, just like you're getting alcohol that's kind of expressing itself. Volatile acidity would be something you'd find in the wine too, as a fault in the wine, oftentimes expressed by way of nail polish remover. You get that kind of smell to this. I'm not picking up a bunch of that yet, but the alcohol is expressed in a way of those esters that are carrying aromas, and as part of that, I pick up this kind of more distillate kind of alcohol profile like you'd find in Scotch. That's more present here too. So, okay, so a whole bunch of ripe fruit in the fruit category, and the few acronym, right? We're talking about fruit. A lot of dark fruit, ripe fruit kind of profiles. Any raisiny fruit for people? Any tart, underripe fruit? It's pretty much just ripe, hot fruit. Blackberries and currants and things. Yeah, dark fruit, ripe fruit. On the earthen side, we're picking up a little bit of that licorice element. We're picking up some of that smokiness and meatiness. These are descriptors oftentimes associated with Syrah. It seems a bit bigger than some Syrah, but maybe it's a blend too, something we should consider. But overall, a ripeness that's pretty pronounced. And then the wood, all that spice, there's a kind of a cinnamon element, there's a... There's a cigar box kind of note for me. Good. Okay, let's taste the wine. See what you think when you taste it. And we can verify or build another additional element to the profile here as we taste. So, as we taste the wine, is this a dry wine? Is it an off-dry wine? Where are the tannins at? Are they low, medium, or high? Is this wine robust? I.e., is it kind of like in whole milk compared with 2% in the skim milk? Is it light, medium, or robust? Where is the acidity at? Is it long and lengthy? Does it make you salivate well after your sip? So, a few of you are already commenting on tannins, huge tannins, ample tannins, lots of tannin, quite dry, thank you, Todd. So as we're saying, ample, huge, and lots of tannin, that tracks with what we saw initially too, right? We saw pretty powerful, deep purple color. We saw substantial legs that were holding their own. Those are all indications that we would have a pretty ripe berry that would have a thicker skin. And that thicker skin would then impart color, but also probably impart tannin as it's being soaked or being extracted from that soak. So yeah, pretty powerful tannin, drying sensation that comes from the tannin, but it's also a dry wine. The tannins, as Dean's pointing out, seem to have overwhelmed the fruit that was so evident on the nose. The first sip isn't exceptionally fruity. There's a little bit on that retronasal. We'll come back to the second sip to see if we can pick up more on the fruit. More of a meatiness, though, coming through for Robert in the way of bacon. Custom bottoms are throwing out a little bit lower acid. Yes, medium acid at most. It's not super acidic. It's not causing a lot of salivation at the end of the sip. At the end of the sip, incidentally, too, that's where you'd pick up sweetness. So ample fruit quality and sweetness don't go hand in hand. You can have a very fruity wine and it be fully dry. And the dryness is perceived mostly at the finish of the wine. So as it lingers, is there residual sugar, kind of a, think of actually sugar syrup as opposed to, in this case, say blackberry. If you have a whole bunch of blackberry, it can still be dry. You're separating the actual flavor and the fruit profile from the acidity and from the sweetness. So lower acid, medium acid the most. We're talking probably medium plus to high tannin. Yep. So I'm getting a little bit of that tannin, that suppressing tannin from the fruit, but some of that fruit is kind of peeking through. Little peeks through the cloud cover that is the tannin of this experience. And in addition, I can echo some of that meaty leatheriness that's there. So we had mentioned Petit Syrah, Syrah, Tannat, Petit Verdot being potential varietals. As you look at something that's got this much fruit and ripeness, and you have a little relatively low acid, do you think this is New World or Old World? And generally speaking, we talk about the Old World being a place where you'd find more acidity, relatively speaking. You can have ripeness, no question, in the Old World, especially today, where before perhaps the styles and the lack of climate change would have given you a lesser ripe wine typically than you would find in the New World. But generally with that lower acid profile and the ripe fruit, I think we're talking mostly about a New World wine. Does everybody agree? Or would you want to posit that this could be, say, Spanish red or Portuguese red, a Southern French red? It could certainly be in that realm, but more hard-pressed to express sort of a lighter profile kind of European expression in this wine. So, Kathy, your description just popped up in the sanguine quality. So there's a mineral kind of ferrous element that comes through from freshly cooked or just cooked beef. So kind of that little purge run when you let it rest, some of the juices that come out of it. And so in that too is a little bit of Maillard reaction, perhaps, that like you're grilling a steak and there's that crust on the outside. It's caramelization, but it's the Maillard reaction where the proteins are caramelizing as opposed to sugars. And you get that wonderful meaty aroma, and the resulting juices as it rests kind of venturing out from the muscle. Yeah, New World from Kathy as well, and Syrah for Todd. He's kind of going in on Syrah, but Chile would be a nice way to say we might be speaking about Syrah with the characteristics that are oftentimes found in the New World, or in the Old World, I should say, but could also be present in the Old World and more accounted for in this wine thanks to the ripeness that we're finding and the darker color expression. We could be talking about Australia, for example, in Shiraz. I don't think we're there, but we should consider that. South Africa and Syrah, Chile and Syrah, California and Syrah. Greg is noting the riper element, perhaps California or Southwest. Petite, I think you're maybe saying Petite Syrah, but then Uruguayan Tannat. That's fascinating too. Why not? I don't think Australia. I'm not going to pick up as much of that kind of like there's a eucalyptus-y element, and I could be very wrong. Kathy's loving the Tannat from Uruguay. So Tannat's a rich varietal, right? It's a varietal that gives you color and power and tannin. Tannat done in the southwestern part of France. Sometimes this we jokingly say it's kind of cut with Cabernet Sauvignon. So, I mean, Cabernet is pretty robust. So it's right of Cabernet. And because of that, it can be kind of softened by Cabernet, or at least complemented by it. Uruguay is definitely known for producing some really interesting and compelling Tannat. I oftentimes find it to be a touch kind of softer, but that's based on very limited experience. I mean, 5 to 10 times trying a Uruguayan Tannat in total. So, Kristen, you're throwing out Italian. So, I mean, Petit Verdot is grown in Italy. You can find Tannat played with, but not expressive. And so if it was the case, it would be an anomaly, and that's not bad at all. It'd be fun to be able to try such a wine. Virginia Tannat? I don't know. I mean, we should consider that, right? Because when you talk about Uruguay and Tannat, you should be talking a little bit about at least thinking and running through a Virginian production. So Virginia Tannat being one of those. Greg's making a nice point there too, that he's not picking up any kind of green elements or pepperiness, although pepperiness kind of came through for some, and may be able to omit Cabernet. But let's sidestep that kind of point and say, is this a blend or is this a single varietal? So is this Petit Syrah, Tannat, or is it a blend of some things? And one way you kind of look for that would be, are there a series of things about this wine that are all present but not necessarily making a whole bunch of sense for one grape? And sometimes that's the case where you're getting like, wow, this is both red and dark fruit. This is, has a little bit of a high acid point, and yet it has really, really like raisiny dry fruit. And so it could be a blend, it could be different sites. I'm not myself picking up as much of the kind of discordant elements or disparate elements that would lead me toward a blend, but so I think this might be more of a varietally, at least a varietally labeled wine. So generally speaking, more than say 75%, depending on the appellation you're in, of a particular varietal, and that then allows you to label the wine as that varietal. Some appellations are more strict than that, requiring 90 or 100%. But wow, yeah, that meatiness is coming out. We're at 20 minutes, 21, 22 minutes now, where all wines seem to change in this tasting, with a few exceptions. And this is one that sort of seems to be kind of softening a little bit on the nose. Being aerated and swirled like this for the last 20 minutes has helped, I think, soften some of that kind of that alcohol smell that came out before, that scotchy element that we had talked about before. There's still some of that smoke, but maybe even more of that smoke, smoldering element. Greg, to your question, would we expect more brightness from the French Tannat? Maybe a little more acidity, not necessarily more brightness. The tannin's in keeping with it, but the fruit is riper, I think. It's still a pretty warm place in the southwestern part of France there. However, I don't know that we get quite this kind of level of fruit. Maybe, it depends on the vintage. For those of you that are Tannat, are you comfortably Uruguayan Tannat, or are you thinking that this is French Tannat? Or, as I should have said as well, Virginia Tannat. I don't think that the level of tannin here would express Virginia typically. I mean, this could be, if this is 2019 Tannat from Virginia, then be delighted. And 2019 Tannat from Virginia, playing the Chris Shirley card of this game, would probably not make it into our tasting for $30. I think it would make it in the beginning points of a tasting for that would be like 35 or 40. So I don't think this is Virginia. I could wrap my head around, I guess, the French expression of this being Tannat. So here's a little wine trivia, right? So what appellation in France is known for producing Tannat? Yep, Kathy, I agree. It's not Virginia Tannat. Effingham makes a nice Tannat, yeah. quite a few people make a really lovely Tanat in Virginia and worthy of seeking out. Like Jake Bushing makes a Tanat too, and Jake's kind of got that dark quality to his Tanat that's really beautiful. Others like, oh gosh, like Fabioli, Doug Fabioli used to make a Tanat, or makes a Tanat that was kind of lighter in expression, that was pretty, and touched on the writer side of things. So I haven't tried Effingham's Tanat, but I look forward to that. Mataran, yes, Kathy, you're correct. That's the appellation in France. So Mataran is a spot that is known, as I mentioned, for growing Tanat, but also using it Cabernet Sauvignon kind of in that. Chester Gap's making one now. That's great. Walsh makes a lovely one. Yes, there's a host of them around us, which is awesome, that are worthy of looking at. Artera makes a good one. Yes, delighted all of you know and have your own favorite Tanats around here. It's a grape that's pretty cool, and one that for Virginia in particular, as we're talking about this profile, right, where Cabernet doesn't really do it, right? So it doesn't necessarily give Cabernet kind of the ripeness that you would expect from it from a lot of other places, especially New World wine drinkers who are looking for volume and ripe fruit and tannic structure. It doesn't really happen here with Cabernet as much. There are a few sites that do it, mountain fruit in particular, more up north. However, Tanat gives you some of that structure quality that you would be looking for in the way of Cabernet typically. And then you can also find that here in the way of Petit Verdot and blended in together as Early Mountain does, for example, in their wine called Rise. Really interesting wine. You've got a really cool wine from one called PVT from, why am I blanking right now on their productions? Paradise Springs, excuse me. Paradise Springs make a wine called PVT. That's Petit Verdot and Tanat, and that's a pretty cool wine. Todd, you're in my brain somehow saying, have we ruled out Malbec? Because every time I think about Mataran in France, I also have to think about Malbec and Cahors, because Malbec coming from there can give you really tannic expression too. This is a case where we couldn't, or we should at least touch base on Malbec. I don't know that we're experiencing South American Malbec in this, but yeah, I like the Tanat element more. I like the Syrah, Chilean Syrah element. Possibility a touch more, although the tannins here seem to be a little bit more aggressive than you would find in Syrah. There's something like blue about Malbec usually, from a floral quality to sometimes a little blueberry element for me, but I don't get that. Sometimes Malbec from Cahors can be so rustic and earthy and tannic that you kind of mask some of that fruit, and there is this tannic element here, but I don't know. I think if I had to pick between Tanat and Malbec from the southwestern part of France, I would be headed toward Tanat. And that would be because of the possibility that this wine doesn't really have as much of that fruit profile. It does have a little bit of earthiness, has more of a meatiness. Ooh. It's got a kind of vanilla cake hint, just enveloped by all kinds of alcoholic fruit notes. So sometimes I see that as medicinal. It's not herbal, but like cough drops, like blackberry flavor in a cough drop. Yeah. Kathy's picking up a little coffee note too. Coffee would be kind of an indication maybe of a wood treatment. And so if you're having that kind of wood element, and we got all that spice, not that the New World can't use and doesn't use oak, it does, absolutely. But I don't know that we would see that so much in, say, a Chilean Syrah. So I think I'm headed toward a Mataran, maybe, sort of something. southwestern France. I did just said too that maybe we'd walk away from that because of the ripeness of that fruit, but the tannin quality in itself feels a little bit more old world, even though the acidity is a little bit down. So a riper site. Everybody's picking up on the kind of bitter coffee, espresso element, roasted coffee quality. That's cool. So when you're getting those kind of notes, right, that's something to differentiate between the actual fruit and the wine expression. And think about those kind of notes with respect to how someone might use oak, just like how someone might use spices in a sauce. And so the sauce, let's say you're using a blackberry sauce, the blackberry fruit would come through, it would be cooked, it'd be maybe a little bit of a vinegar you'd add to it or something like that to brighten it, but then you'd add a series of spices to add dimension and flavor to the overall wine. It doesn't necessarily add texture, although the wood can, but that spice profile like layers into the wine and adds complexity and dimension to the experience of drinking it, oftentimes to the aroma too. We're picking up elements of that. We have right from the beginning from smokiness to now the coffee element, and so the bitter coffee element would indicate probably a more toasted barrel, a more roasted barrel. So barrels, if you don't know, right, are light toast, medium toast, or heavy toast, and then there are variations in between, and different coopers toast in different ways. Their light is different than another cooper's a light or medium toast. So they don't put the tops and the bottoms on the barrel, and they put them right over a fire, and they rotate them, and so that the inside of the barrel gets toasted, and that adds a dimension of flavor. So we're thinking maybe a more roasted or toasted barrel. That's pretty cool. So, all right. Give me your initial conclusions and where you're going to plant your flag. Is this old world, new world? Yeah, Radicchio, nice call, Dean. There's a bitterness. It's coming through. There's an astringency now to the tannin as some of that fruit kind of subsides. That tannin's kind of presenting an astringency. Sometimes that comes from a whole cluster element with the fruit press, and so you're getting a little bit of lignin kind of out of the stems. You get a little bitterness. Sometimes it's just a little bit underripe fruit. That tannin isn't fully expressed. Sometimes the seeds can do that too. And so this is a wine that, again, to recap, robust in color, purple, deep, substantial legs that formed and held, higher alcohol, an alcoholic kind of nose that had elements of smoke and peatiness, had elements of dark fruit, plums, meatiness. So, it has aromas that all match kind of that, and then flavor profiles that give you a lot of tannin and low acid, round kind of whole milk, kind of full robust flavor profile of wine, and then the expression kind of lingers through to the finish. Tannin is pervasive all the way through, and grapes we're considering kind of Petit Syrah, Syrah, Tannat. Malbec was thrown in there. Not so much in the Cabernet world, not so much in the Merlot world. So something that's tannic and powerful and purple. And so, New World Tannat, Uruguay. Old World Tannat from Dean. Todd's up in Washington State with kind of a Syrah. That's interesting. Syrah, Washington State. Okay, cool. Dean, you put out Old World Tannat, so that's French Tannat, or maybe it could be Uruguayan Tannat, so a New World Tannat in that case. 2018 Uruguayan Tannat is Kathy's note. I think that's a good one. I think I'm pausing because I'm going back to that fruit in my first choice. So Uruguayan Tannat for quite a few of you, Greg included. Second choice would be Petit Verdot. Yeah, I mean, Petit Verdot would be interesting. Like, I've had a Petit Verdot. We've tasted a Petit Verdot from Italy. This is going back a while. It's pretty cool to be able to say this going back a while. We've had well over a year plus of these tastings. 2 years plus at this point. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of look at that potentially too. However, I think the fruit here kind of draws me back to South America. I was building a case. My initial thought was to go to South America, and then I was building a case for Southern France, and I think I got to go back to South America. I think there's just something about that kind of almost candied fruit that takes me back to South America, and so I'm going to be Uruguayan Tannat too. It is youthful. I'm going to say 2019. I think it's a young wine. 2019, 2020. Youthful, kind of present release in the market kind of experience with this. So Todd's going either Washington or maybe Chile. I like that call. I'm going to walk away from that personally, Todd, because there's a little bit more coastal influence in Chile, and you have, I think, a little less tannin with Syrah. But some of the notes, the flavor notes, are good ones to call Syrah. I don't think you'd be docked too badly if you made that call. So, all right. Tannat, let's say, I think there's a chance that I'm wrong because of the tannic structure is a bit more aggressive than I've been exposed to from Uruguay, but I'm going to say 2019 Uruguayan Tannat. Jimenez Mendez Alta Reserva Tannat from Canelones, Uruguay, and it has won many awards. This is 2017, so this is a little older than I gave it credit for. 90 points from Tim Atkin. Very cool. 100% Tannats. 9 months in American and French oak, so some of that American oak is presenting us some of that spice profile. Declared top winner at Tannat to the World International Competition in October 2016, which would have negated the opportunity for this wine to be in that. But anyway, fun to try, pretty cool wine. This is, I want to look for the alcohol, 14% alcohol. So some of that booziness that we picked up coming from that 14%, it's wearing it much better now that it's been open for a while. So kudos to everybody for helping us to get to this wine. I think nice to have all of you back in the action and the swing of things. Welcome back to you, Kathy. And yeah, 2017, it's pretty cool. I think it's still showing pretty young. I mean, I thought it was 2019, 2020. This is a pretty structured, powerful Tannat. I think there are other examples where you can find it with a little bit softer kind of tannin profile from Uruguay, but yeah, this one needs a little bit of time. It's showing young, and so that, or fire up something really meaty and rich and robust and hit the grill for just a brief minute so you have some rareness, and this will soften out some of that tannin and be beautiful. It's a big one. So I love the collective wine tasting too, Kathy. It's my favorite way. I'm much better at it with all of you. So thank you all again for participating, and I look forward to doing it again with you as we venture to July, the third week of July. If I don't see you at the restaurant before then, have a wonderful 4th of July. We're going to close for a brief one. We're going to close sort of the last week of June that covers into the 4th of July, as it would be a typical day we'd be closed, but we're going to give the team a break before that, and then we'll come back the week right after the 4th of July. So that'll be spectacular to be back up and in, and wow, tomatoes, corn, all those summer products, summer produce coming our way, which we're super excited about getting a chance to work with. Peaches finally hit the market this past week, and so we'll be getting into that. Some blueberries are on the docket. We're getting some tart cherries, and so really an exciting time of year to be dining, and of course drinking wine. Every time of year is exciting to drink wine. So we'll see you back at the restaurant after that, or some of you sooner and before that, but then all of you, I hope, again for this tasting on the third Thursday of July. Cheers, everybody. Have a great evening.